This next example is a great illustration of the fact that when things are going well, you don't have to overthink things. It's also a great illustration of the fact that you can get away with almost anything as long as you follow the format properly. The content matters much less than sort of the context that you are using. So in this case, what had happened was I had hired a personal assistant from Africa for $3 an hour to message a bunch of girls for me. And I was having him split test 3 different messages. So he was trying, this message to this many girls, this message to this many girls, this message to this many girls, and then recording results, recording how many people responded, recording how many of them led to phone numbers, etc. So he was supposed to send each girl 1 message and go through it, but he didn't understand because he's dumb and works for $3 an hour. And so what he did was he sent all 3 messages stacked one after the other to a bunch of girls. And the funny thing is, I actually got a higher response rate from sending the 3 stacked messages than I had to any of the individual messages, which is pretty fucking crazy. But it was so weird and so out there, they had to respond. I didn't get necessarily as much of a conversion after that, as far as getting through to the phone number, but it did get a higher response rate, which is pretty interesting. This is one of the girls that received the stacked 3 messages. And so she was a little confused and intrigued by this. And so what she wrote in response was, "Wow, those are some interesting messages. You certainly make yourself stand out." So in this case, this is overtly flattering. This is overtly complimentary. So what I could do in this case is just move it forward. Now, this was, again, a while ago when I was still discovering the model, so I wasn't quite as slick with it or as clean with it as I could have been. And what I did here is actually just out of my own amusement, I just admitted the fact that those were sent by my $3 an hour assistant and not even by me. But I followed the right format, which is the format of do something lighthearted, fun, funny, and sort of have a light close. So here's what I wrote. "LOL, you're welcome. Technically, my $3 an hour foreign assistant sucks ass and was only supposed to send you 1 of those selected at random. But hey, whatever works, I guess. He'll learn eventually. I'll be in Colorado in about 10 days. Perhaps we should explore whether I stand out over a drink." Okay. So in this case, it's a pretty direct close because I say, "I'll be here, we should explore this over a drink, etc." The thing that makes it okay is, number one, her response was so positive that going for a little bit more of a hard close is pretty tolerable. But secondly, this whole 10 days thing is really huge. One thing I do, because I do travel a lot, is I use the travel to my advantage. I always say, "I'm out of town right now, but let's talk soon." Or, "I'm out of town right now, let's talk while I'm out of town and figure it out." Because by saying I'll talk to you when I'm out of town, as opposed to I just want to talk to you when I can make a date or right when I'm in a situation where we could have sex, it tends to convey a lot of comfort. It tends to build more social capital because it's even though I'm asking for something that's not really asking for something in terms of I'm not asking for sex, right? So it's a lighter ask. So that tends to soften a lot. So this whole travel thing is another way of softening. So even though it seems like a pretty direct close, it's actually less direct because I say I'm out of town. So I got a positive response and I moved things forward. So then here was her response. "Yeah, I'm down. So your assistant wrote those messages for you?" So again, even though I just basically admitted I didn't write the messages and someone at $3 an hour sent her a bunch of messages and I couldn't even get my assistant to do the right thing. It looks so stupid, but I followed the format. It's fun, it's funny, it's interesting. I'm escalating in the right way, and that's enough, even if the content's dumb. So first, I sent 3 messages at once by accident. Then I called out myself, called out being ungenuine, called out the fact that my assistant sucked and I couldn't give him proper orders. So all I've done is be completely out of control looking and I don't have my shit together at all, but I followed the format very well. So because I followed the format well, it's working. My next response was, "Haha, no, I wrote them. He misused them like a retard. Anyway, you seem reasonably cool about the whole thing. My number's this. What's yours?" A few things to note here. Basically, again, her response was positive, so my response is fairly positive as well. I can actually give her a compliment. I don't have to tease her and give her a hard time because she's giving me a very positive time too. Now, if she somehow switches and starts giving me shit, now I might have to pass some shit tests at that point, but no need to create shit tests where they don't exist. So this looks pretty good, right? And again, your assistant wrote them. I could treat that as an insult, but she seems cool about it, so why not just admit it and keep going with the genuineness? Why not? So that's what I did. The other thing that's interesting here is when I asked for the number, I didn't say, "What's your number?" I said, "My number is this, what's yours?" I've split tested that. If I say, "What's your number?" it gets a response rate a decent amount of the time. If I say, "My number is this, what's yours?" in the exact same type of situation, it gets a response for a phone number. On the easy ones that are likely to go forward anyway, a little bit more often. On the close ones, which are the ones that are really important, the ones where it's kind of dicey, you don't know if she's going to give you the number or not, it gets the number far, far, far more often. So remember that format. My number is this, what's yours, rather than what's your number. Again, it's like this social capital idea. Instead of asking for something from her, it's like giving something and asking for reciprocation, right? You're playing into it. You're doing it in a way that sort of engenders more trust and engenders more of this idea of you've had a good experience together, and you're in it to share the experience rather than to get something from her. Because you're giving your number as well as getting hers, it seems more of like a shared experience. So anyway, I found that it works. It makes a significant statistical difference, so do it. All right, her next message was, oh, I see, LOL, and then her phone number. So very simple, very straightforward, no messing around. Her responses were positive, so I got to the point and got the phone number very quickly. Most of my interactions nowadays look a lot like this. In fact, most of my interactions these days look like this in terms of how fast it is, but then the messages I'm using are like the same messages over and over again because I've seen so many of the like conversational threads that come out of my messages, and I've also seen so many of the common shit tests and so many of the common compliments that I know exactly how to respond to them. But in terms of how quickly this happens, most of my interactions that go successfully look a lot like this. So don't think that everyone has to be difficult. Don't think you have to do something brilliant every time. A lot of times the girl just likes you and you like her and you can just get to the point very, very quickly. That's how it should look like actually most of the time.